Joining us in the D11 Sports Studios is John Hauth-Senior Director of Sports Medicine Relationships. They're at St. Luke's, and John, it looks like you're in the cold weather right now. I'm not sure exactly where you are, but
yeah, it's a little chilly here,
out there.
It's a little chilly here. As from a trip in January to Colorado, you can see it was beautiful blue skies, and it was kind of on the tail end of the last time that we were out and about unabated. It didn't start much after that we ended up in this COVID-19 restrictions, and so I figured I'd put a little bit of a nice memory behind me here.
As we look at everything that's been going on, and St. Luke's obviously on the front line of doing everything. We're in April. It's hard to believe this started over a month ago. Well, in our area, with the shutdown in our area, but over a month ago. Take us through kind of a timeline of what has happened with St. Luke's and the hospital staff, and kind of where we are today with everyone.
Yeah, so I mean, it's especially for those that are on the front lines with us, or for us, and for the community, across the many regions that we serve. So New Jersey to Monroe County, across Carbon, Schuylkill, out to our GSL campus in Orwigsburg, all the way down to Upper Bucks there in Quakertown. They've been very busy on the front lines, treating the COVID-19 patients, as well as others that would need treatment at the hospitals. And so it certainly has put a fair amount of stress on our resources. But the network from the very beginning has had a team of individuals that have worked strategically with the state and federal partners to make sure that we were well prepared. From the sports medicine side, things pretty much came to a stop, as you well know. The games stopped, the practices stopped, the preparation for the spring season ended. The winter season was cut short of eventual champions and championships, which was really it was really unfortunate, but all attentions needed to be turned to the COVID-19 initiatives and taking care of the patients that needed it the most. So we've done a great job as a network. We're really on the sides in a supportive role right now, chipping in wherever we can. But our network colleagues that are in the hospitals, in the emergency rooms, in our urgent cares, in our physician practices, continuing to meet the needs of the community, you really deserve all of the credit here.
They keep talking about flattening the curve, and obviously you have New York, you have the different states. Can you, and I know you're not in that part of St. Luke's, but I know you're in the, what's going on for the most part. Where are we when it comes to the Lehigh Valley, the Poconos, and into New Jersey, into Phillipsburg, into Schuylkill County? Kind of where are we right now with that curve? Do we have another 3 days, 10 days? Kind of if you could set that up for us.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we get updates every day in terms of looking at what the numbers are, and really the folks like Dr. Jari and Kara Masidi and others, those physicians that are really in the front lines, they're tracking that very carefully. And on a positive note, we've seen some reduction in the different campuses. Our Monroe campus was hit very hard. We believe a lot of that has to do with, the transient nature of the population. We have a lot of individuals that work in New York City or, the metropolitan area. So they were either driving themselves or taking, while it was still open, they were taking the bus into the city, into those hot spots, coming back home to their primary homes or sometimes secondary homes. And of course, when they needed treatment, when they were seeking treatment, many of them went to our Monroe Hospital, and our Monroe Hospital was very much impacted by that. That being said, Dr. Favini and his staff there have done an outstanding job of managing through this COVID-19 situation. So we have seen what we believe is, kind of that top of the curve or the peak, and we seem to be coming down. But I think just like it is across the state, across the country, people are still being cautious about what that might mean, because if we do take our foot off of the brake at all. If we loosen up too quickly on these restrictions, if we're not mindful of the social distancing guidelines, hand washing, trying to restrict our movement and congregating, then we could see an uptick very quickly. So, we want to kind of stay in that mode right now, and hopefully things will continue to come down. And then it's about, how do we, in a stepwise fashion, move back strategically, intelligently, to ramp up the economy and ramp up our businesses.
Would you have your back fixed by a mechanic? Don't take a risk with your rehabilitation. Trust physical therapy at St. Luke's.
As we talk about St. Luke's and the sports medicine division, which you're in charge of, and the athletic trainers, obviously when school's not going on, they're moved about a little bit. Talk about how you're utilizing many of them right now in maybe other capacities.
Sure. So both our sports medicine and our sports performance teams. So we've stayed connected with the school districts. We're checking in. We've reached out to school districts to look for some support in the way of any personal protection equipment that they might have, masks or gloves to donate. Even cleaning supplies were needed by the hospitals. You can imagine how quickly we were going through, hospital grade quick cleaning supplies. And school districts have across the board have been tremendous. They've been very generous in working out donations, and sharing them not just with St. Luke's but with other health networks and EMS groups that needed those supplies. But to St. Luke's, our school partners have been very, very generous. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. In addition to that, because our sports medicine team is largely made up of athletic trainers that have a diverse skill set, and most people don't think about them working in some of these areas, but we have a robust industrial athletic training group that's headed by an individual by the name of Kyra Dotson. So we have relationships with different companies, and then we had other companies that have since reached out to us. And in fact, there's some new rule changes that went in that, if they have a positive test, then those employers have to screen, they have to triage their workers before they, get onto the plant floor, the warehouse, or the manufacturing division. So using the skills that our athletic trainers have, we've now gone back to work largely in those environments to keep that supply chain moving, for groceries and for deliveries and all those types of things. So, we're helping keep the supply chain moving across the region.
So they're not in the athletic field, but they're still in the field, and they're helping out, those athletes, but they're helping out the community as a whole, really.
Exactly. I mean, it's and it's not what probably any of our athletic trainers, had looked to do. We do have a number of athletic trainers that have worked in the industrial and occupational medicine side in the past. It's actually quite a large area for athletic trainers because they understand injury and illness prevention, and they know prevention strategies. They can come right alongside of an occupational medicine team, work with the physician group in that area, get the protocols, and then execute. And that's what Kyra has been doing. She's a fantastic leader in that division for us, and she's established some great partnerships with different companies. And we really see this as, they're going to see some of the benefits of having athletic trainers there, and we're probably going to see, growth as we come out of this. We'll see growth in the opportunities there.
When you talk about the schools and them being able to give back and the donations they have, obviously with school out for the rest of the year in brick and mortars, they don't need it right now. They don't need the sanitizer. All that stuff can be refilled and restocked as they get back to school, in September. So that's a luxury that really, the health facilities do have, that they have that great partnership, like St. Luke's, with the schools that you have. How important is that, almost the give and take, and that partnership that you have with the school districts around the Lehigh Valley and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, it's made a huge difference. The donate, we were really counting on many of those donations, and many of them from the school districts, and that's what being a real partner is all about. Being able, when they've needed us, we were there. Now we're on the side where we need your help. If you have cleaning supplies, if you have masks, if you have gloves, and the school districts really have stepped up in a big way, and every little bit helped. We had people that got into their school nurses supplies, and broke them up to share them with St. Luke's and others, and really we would have had some difficulty without that. And not only the school districts, although the school districts obviously are close partners with us, but employers across the region, either stepping up to maybe transition from making spirits to making hand sanitizer. We have a number of partners that have done that and supplied it to St. Luke's. A number of them have manufacturing demands, and they had PPE, so they had N95 masks, and they had other supplies that they could contribute. So this has really been, I think, although it's been it's just been an awful situation, terrible situation for all of us. We see a lot of the good that exists across the communities that we live and work in, and that's really, people have looked for ways to support it. Making masks, higher ed, we see a number of the colleges and universities where the folks have gotten together. They put together their 3D printers to make stethoscopes, to make masks, shields for the hospitals, and have spun those out, and then made sure that they got delivered to the hospitals and to the frontline workers. And these aren't things that people have to do. These are things that people see as part of their civic responsibility, as part of being part of something bigger than maybe what they are otherwise. And people generally want to help, and genuinely want to help, and they found ways to do it.
So you're hurting. Is it your back or your knee? Get the rehabilitation you need. We're in your neighborhood. Call Physical Therapy at St. Luke's.
As we look towards the fall, everyone's talking about all of a sudden the fall. The concern is football going to happen at the high school level, the collegiate level, the pro level, or other sports and soccer and field hockey, just sports in general. Is school going to be back in session? Kind of, and I say what you're hearing, but is it a concern not only for myself, but for you, but for really everybody? Because still we're at that situation where the unknown is still out there.
Yeah, I mean, without a legitimate cure, treatment, without a vaccine, without those things that could really protect us. I know there's a lot of debate going on right now, did we overreact? I think, we really have to trust the experts. We have to trust the science on this. If we hadn't put these, guidelines in place, how much worse would the numbers be, and how much longer would we be in this situation? I think the one thing that all of us need to keep in mind is we don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. And that's what the news programs are about. That's what ESPN and other folks are trying to get into is, well, is college football going to take place? Are they going to be back in for preseason camp, or is college football going to be played in the spring? We're hearing all of these things, right? What's Major League Baseball going to do? And I think this is one of those where, you plan for the worst and you hope for the best. And you have to really take it day to day, week to week. And let's see what happens, with this curve the rest of the way, and what tends to develop with treatments and the development of vaccines and all of those types of things. I think it's reasonable to expect that, the social distancing guidelines and protective measures are going to stretch out here for a bit, probably well into the early part of the summer and maybe deeper. I think it's reasonable to expect that. But I'm watching all of the extraordinary things that's happening in medicine and science right now. And so, that's where, on the flip side, you remain hopeful that, things are going to happen. We had, a treatment at our Warren Hospital where, it was successful, where, they did a bit of a innovative treatment on the patient, and they turned the corner, and they're doing well. And we're seeing that across the country. There's some really incredible minds at work here. So we have to trust that that's going to continue to happen, but not get too concerned about, are we going to have, fall sports in high school? Are we going to have that? We hope for that. At worst, maybe it gets delayed a little bit, but, we also have to realize that if things don't play out, we may have to have some restrictions that go a little bit deeper into 2020 and maybe touch on 2021.
John, that all said, before I let you go, you got a big event or something that's happening called Operation Gratitude. Tell us exactly what that's about, and that's gonna be happening here soon.
Yeah, so there's people out there, all types of people that want to help. So Operation Gratitude is really one that's been put together by manufacturer, distributor, to provide some treats, some snacks to all of those that are working out there on the front lines. Really get it into the hands of the hospital workers, those people working in the emergent settings, our EMS partners. And so we're going to have, I forget how many pallets, but it's a bunch of pallets that are going to be delivered, 18,000 total units that will be delivered. And then what we will do is we will break them up and get them out to our different hospital campuses for those workers. And it's a thank you. It's a show of appreciation. This isn't something that, folks, again, have to do. It's something that they want to do. They know these folks are running long shifts, turning right around, coming back for another long shift. It's stressful physically, it's stressful mentally and emotionally. So we have all kinds of support set up in our hospitals to support these folks. But externally, we have groups like this one with Operation Gratitude that are going to reach out. So we're going to break those up, get them out to our folks, and then any additional ones that we have, we'll make sure that they get into the right hands, those people who need it the most. But it's just another way that the community is coming together, to support those that are really doing a lot of the heavy lifting here.
St. Luke's Pediatrics delivers the care you expect for your child, now and for their future. Choose a St. Luke's pediatrician today.
John, great conversation. Obviously, I know everyone is going to be watching. There's so much information that you gave out there that, people are always asking questions. They're looking for a grasp. They're hearing, oh, this, but then they hear this, and it's nice to hear something from, a representative from St. Luke's and St. Luke's Sports Medicine as well, and what you guys continue to do on a daily basis. And, hats off to not only you, but, to all the athletic trainers out there, but to all the doctors and the nurses and, the EMS that are doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Alan. I think, one last thing that I'd like to remind folks is that, physician offices are still open. So for people who, need care, they are still open. We're using a lot of telehealth, but we do have practices that are seeing patients, obviously taking every precaution in those. And then in a conversation yesterday, I think this is important because now we're getting to the beginning of May, and we start thinking about next year, and we start thinking about the well visits and the physicals for our kids. And in a conversation with our pediatrician, leadership and family medicine leadership, there's no reason why families shouldn't, hold those appointments and make sure that if they're due now more than ever, if they're due for a well visit, they're due for vaccines, they're due for any of those kinds of things, that they should hold those appointments. Obviously, if someone's not feeling well, we wouldn't want anybody going to the office. But if they're otherwise healthy, that's an appropriate appointment to maintain. They should schedule or hold the appointment and know that every precaution inside of the offices have been made to keep people healthy and safe.
Thanks, John, for everything. We'll be talking to you down the road and hopefully talking to some more members of St. Luke's. John Hauth, Senior Director of Sports Medicine Relations at St. Luke's, joining us here on D11sports.com.
Thanks, Al.
St. Luke's Orthopedic Care. Extraordinary care in motion.